Who would have ever thought I would be looking at Helen of Troy stock? Well, this isn't in my usual wheelhouse, we'll say. Home and outdoor, beauty and wellness. These are not the types of products I think that I have a lot of knowledge on, and not the kind of business that I usually would look at. However, one of my members asked very nicely for me to take a look at the financials and see if maybe there's some value at play here after the recent 35+% dip. So this is a 1.5 billion market cap consumer products business. Analysts rate it a buy for whatever that's worth. Forward PE is a 7, trailing is a 10. And we'll have to dig in and see what the financials can tell us on this. I'm sure they'll tell an interesting story. Revenues for Helen of Troy seem to be stagnant and probably cyclical based on all of the ups and downs on the quarterlies. So there is a way perhaps to play something like this. Perhaps during an especially bad down cycle, the stock price falls like you're seeing now. And perhaps it's time to scoop up some shares while they are cheap. And then when the upcycle comes during an especially good period, the price will probably recover some and you can sort of arbitrage that in a sense. The risk with that, of course, is that a particularly bad down period could be indicative of a longer term downward trend. This is 5 years, but what are the next 5 going to look like? Will the lows go lower and the highs not quite as high? I suspect that the market forces impacting Helen of Troy negatively may be similar to the ones affecting, say, a Nike or a Lululemon. Looking at some of their brands, they've got some premium brands here. They've got Hydroflask, which I think people would agree is a pretty premium brand. They have Pure, which is, I think, the water filters. They own Vicks. I wasn't aware of that. But one thing I think it's worth pointing out, these probably are mostly discretionary. I would say a $35 or $40 water bottle in terms of Hydroflask, for example, certainly falls in the discretionary category, and any weakness in the consumer, maybe due to inflation, is going to definitely hurt that brand. And I don't mean brand perception. I kind of reject the idea that a lot of these brands are faltering, or their stocks are faltering, or their sales are faltering because it's just not cool anymore. That's what you hear in some of these cases. It's more that you can't necessarily sell as many $40 water bottles when groceries and gas are more expensive. In terms of how their bottom line has been impacted in terms of their GAAP net income, we have the lowest quarter in the last 5 years, aside from a quarter they had during, you guessed it, 2020. And there was some things that happened in 2020 that might explain that particular anomaly. I would be willing to sort of exclude that if we were analyzing the company a while back. So if we exclude that in our analysis, we would have to conclude that this, for at least under normal, conditions, is pretty much the worst quarter that they've had in the last 5 years. Could it be a sign of something worse bubbling beneath the surface, or is this just par for the course, and are they destined to get back to a more normal level? For me to consider it, I would have to take the time to at least listen to the last earnings call and hear their explanation for that abysmal net income. Now, their balance sheet is another concern here, with their net income dropping that low and their net cash compared to debt being so deeply negative. And this is relative to their market cap and their assets as well. So don't be deceived by the fact that you might look at their financials after this and see a good amount of equity or book value. A lot of that, more than 50%, is tied up in goodwill and intangibles, which may or may not actually be saleable. But if they burn cash and this net income doesn't turn around, this debt could start to become pretty difficult to manage. maybe not sending them to zero, but certainly making it hard for them to return value to shareholders. They've only got about 16.5 million in cash on the last financials. You could say to yourself, hey, but it's pretty cheap. It's only barely a 10 PE and an 8.4 price to free cash flow based on trailing 12 months. However, this is a sharp single quarter decline. You would need to be right that this one quarter is definitely not indicative of some issue moving forward. It's mighty easy to say that it's cheap, but is it really if their net income stays somewhat depressed? These ratios will sort of normalize on their own if that's the case. And it seems with the price movement, that's what the market is sort of anticipating, I guess you could say. If it does recover back to a more normal level, it could be that this is a pretty big overreaction by the market. And it would seem that analysts at least believe that to be the case. Based on how I'm reading their price targets, it seems that they think maybe it's not a slam dunk, grand slam, awesome, mega big return, but it is a consensus buy with all of their targets being a bit ahead of today's price. So at least the analyst consensus seems to be that this is a bit of an overcorrection from the market. Also, anytime a stock drops sharply, it seems that these popcorn headlines come out about being investigated by some law firm or people, law firms wanting people who invested in the stock to reach out and talk about compensation for losses and this and that and the other thing. I don't consider these anything but just neutral. This is just something that happens as a result of the price dropping, in my personal opinion. I personally don't factor them into my analysis as anything of significance. Now, if somebody else out there chooses to, that's completely up to them, but I think it's mostly a whole lot of hot air, but that's just me. The question is, what will this business produce profit-wise, cash flow-wise over the next few years? What's reasonable to think? What's the future? That's what's important. And if you dig and you find out that the sudden drop is likely temporary, perhaps you're confident enough to say it's right for you. But for me, I'm not quite there at the moment. This just isn't really my cup of tea, my wheelhouse. So I don't think I'll be joining the journey on Helen of Troy stock. I am, of course, always open to having my mind changed. It's just on this one, I'm not there on my own with just what I've looked at surface level. If you have this stock or you have an opinion on it, whether it's the same as mine or different, feel free to let it loose in the comments below, like and subscribe for the algorithm. Make sure you join the Discord link in the description where we can discuss stocks just like this one every single day. And don't forget to catch me every Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Cashflow Kings Live, and follow me on Twitter at Mr. Macho Mog. Link is in the description. Take it easy.